For the latest in strategic affairs, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Click the bell icon for updates.
This is StratNewsGlobal. I'm Amitabh. Revi. Our guest and expert today is Lieutenant General C.P. Mohanty. He's been the former Vice Chief of Army Staff and has also served as the Brigade Commander in MONUSCO, which is the UN Peacekeeping and Stabilisation Force in the Democratic Republic of Congo. General Mohanty, thanks so much for giving us time on StratNewsGlobal, sir.
Thank you.
We wanted to get an idea, and our viewers would like to know something more about what happened on the 26th of July in DRC, when unfortunately two of our BSF soldiers were killed. Could you explain the dangers in relation to what really happened?
Okay, this situation, the way it is prevailing right now, it would go back to about November. Now, the situation is so complex, particularly in the eastern part of Congo, that whenever there is a major national level event, there are also repercussions fall out this side. Now, towards November 2021 and up to about February 2022, there have been a large number of attacks on the Congolese army, which is called the FARDC. It's a French acronym, so I'm not giving out the expansion as such, but there have been repeated attacks on them. And towards that time, during the month of March, you would recall that there was a UN helicopter that was brought down. There were 8 casualties, out of that 6 were Pakistanis, so that was rather an unfortunate incident. All these things was happening towards the eastern Congo, where these incidents were going on. There is an armed group called M23. They have the tacit support of their similar kind of ethnic groups who are towards the Rwandan border. They're getting adequate support from them. Now, this group has been carrying out constant attacks on the FARDC to gain some more space as far as the operations are concerned. Now, when this particular incident occurred in the month of July, before that, in a place called Goma, where our brigade headquarters is located, there have been large number of demonstrations. Now, these demonstrations were quelled, and they could do not much of a damage to our contingent, wherein our level 3 hospital, which is manned by the Indians, that was shifted out from the existing location to yet another location, however temporarily. Now, concurrently, there is a place called Butembo. This Butembo location was being handed over because of the reduction on the threat levels to the formed police units, that is FPUs. That was being handed over from the armed units, army units, to the police units. Now, when this change of guard was taking place, there are a large number of people who had come and gathered themselves. In the crowd itself, someone seems to have opened fire. And our persons, in that exchange of fire, one doesn't know whether who opened fire, but it is definitely certain that one of the armed groups who was there in the crowd itself may have opened fire, and that is how in the melee our people died. Now, this is something which has happened as an accidental. As far as our troops are concerned, our BSF personnel are concerned, I am aware that they had exercised extreme constraint and extreme restraint, rather, not constraint, to ensure that there are no casualties through the normal population. However, how the melee took place is primarily because of this. But given our training levels, given the professional competence of the Indian troops there, this won't have happened deliberately. It may have been something more than what meets the eye.
General Mohanty, in the larger picture then, India has been pushing for focused mandate when it comes to UN peacekeeping missions. In this case, not necessarily just in this case, but in the larger picture. Whether it's a focused mandate, whether it's the resources that are needed, again, India has been pushing for that. How important is the mandate in situations like this that happened in the Congo?
As far as MONUSCO is concerned, it's a Chapter 7 mission, wherein we have got to ensure the peace. And there are large number of armed groups that we are fighting against. Some of them are the ADF, which is the Allied Democratic Forces, which are operating towards the north of our area of responsibility of the Indian contingent, which is also called the Central Sector. Now, when we are trying to enforce force, primarily one of our mandate becomes protection of the civilian population. There is a tendency by these armed groups to attack the innocent population, carry out sexual abuses, mass rapes, looting, murders, likewise. Similarly, there are also retribution in this effect, because of which our mandate becomes so essential so as to protect the population which is unarmed. Now, when we have to do it, we have to also exercise firing, not for effect, but at least to fire to prevent the population being targeted by these armed groups. Now, that is the reason this one is a Chapter 7 mission. Now, while we are doing it, we not only have to ensure that in the exchange of fire there is no casualty to the civil population, but we have to also ensure that the armed groups do not repeat the attacks. In addition to that, we are also supposed to provide protection to various international NGOs as also the civilian staff of the MONUSCO itself. So it becomes quite a challenging task for us to do this. Towards that end, we have been adequately equipped for the task to be done. We've got adequate number of small arms. We've got our own the infantry combat vehicles. We've got our mortars, which are the infantry mortars. These are there. But what is important is the manner in which we are exercising restraint in using them itself. You cannot start having too many casualties, and similarly we have to also ensure that there are no collateral damages to population, local population, as also their property. Yet another thing that we have to also guard against, that whenever there is such kind of a clash, the biggest brunt is faced by the UN troops. So some of the population, they are anti-UN, so they try to channelize the energies towards trying to ensure that the UN gets out of it, because once UN gets out of the country, they have the freedom to launch more and more attacks against the population. So as far as the Indian contingent is concerned, there have been very recently change of the equipment, which has been vintage equipment, and we have started pushing in those Make in India equipment and arms, which are facilitating our operation in a much larger way.
We'll talk about that interesting aspect a little later in this discussion, General Mohanty, but if you could again explain to us the context of the Democratic Republic of Congo. Now, both India and DRC share the same Independence Day, but it's a heavily resource-rich country, but still desperately poor. And these armed groups that are there, you mentioned the M23, the March 23 movement. Could you give us a little bit more context of why the UN peacekeeping mission is needed there and why it's been there for so long?
Okay. Now, Congo is a landlocked country. Now, Congo, if you have read the Phantom comics, this is the land where the Phantom comics have been conceived. This is where the Walikele, if you remember the names, also Kigali, of course, is the capital of Rwanda. And the aircraft, the single engine aircrafts landing on a dusty road, these are the things what happens here. And also I have seen the skull caves and everything is there in a place called Walikele. Okay. So there is lots of mining and all. Now, although they got the independence from Belgium in the year 1960, but there have been no governance. There was a Mobutu regime which came. He was in control of the country for a duration of about 33 years, from 1964 to 1997. During this period, in the neighboring country Rwanda, there was that massacre that took place, the clash between the Hutus and the Tutsis. That also had an impact on this. And after the Mobutu regime, after he was thrown out, then came Kabila, Laurent Kabila. Subsequently, from 2009 onwards, his son took over, that is Joseph Kabila. After Joseph Kabila, right now there is a combination of Joseph Kabila and Tshisekedi. Now Tshisekedi is ruling after Joseph Kabila has been moved out. So right now, This is the governance. However, interestingly, despite the fact that it is one of the richest countries, $24 trillion is the assessed
Estimate.
capability that is there in terms of natural resources. Natural resources, you find all types of mining that is possible, right from diamond to gold to iron ore to coal, cassiterite, cobalt, etc., you name it, they have it. But there has been a large number of countries which are exploiting it illegally. There is a lot of illegal mines. The population itself, it will be interesting to know they haven't seen a four-wheeler. Most of the population haven't seen even a four-wheeler. They have only seen the aircraft passing over their heads. So they're extremely poor. Only 10% of the country is connected by road. Between the western part where the capital lies, which is Kinshasa, to the eastern part of the country where our contingents are there, which is Goma, the entire connectivity is only by the aircrafts. There is no road connectivity. Congo River has got inland water transport. But out of all these roads, only 10% roads are metalled. So it almost takes about you can only cover about 3 kilometers to 7 kilometers per hour in all these roads. So it is extremely difficult to go to these villages. Now, this being the dynamics of this particular country, there has been poor governance. The security system is non-existent. I was talking about the FARDC. They are like a ragtag army. Similarly, the PNC, Policia National Congolese, they don't have much of weapon systems. They are also not adequately trained. So given the security apparatus that is there, lack of governance, interference of the foreign, many of the foreign powers who are doing the illegal mining activities there. So because of these reasons, the country has not been able to develop. So despite being one of the richest in terms of resources, it remains in the last 5 countries as far as the poverty is concerned. It is not likely to improve in future because again the eastern countries which are adjoining this country, they have also got the vested interests. There is always a repeated clash between the ethnic groups. There are a large number of ethnic groups and each of these ethnic groups have their own armed forces. And these are the armed forces wherever they get the weapons from, they get adequate arms, small arms particularly, and the ammunition. So they keep carrying out clashes and they attack each other's unarmed populations. So that is the kind of security situation that exists, because of which the country has not been able to progress further. And in my assessment, this particular situation is going to remain for times to come. No matter how much of UN we put in there, the troops that we put in there, the situation is not unlikely to stabilize until unless there is a genuine effort by the entire African Union and also the neighboring states to get involved in peace ensuring, peace enforcing, and also the other powers which are doing the illegal mining or facilitating the illegal mining, they have to move out of that location. That's the only way that peace can come in, and it has the capability of becoming one of the most developed countries if they're allowed peace, tranquility, security and good governance.
So if you could elaborate the role of you mentioning foreign powers or regional powers or neighboring states, are they fomenting trouble? Is that what's happening? That's why there's no stability in the country?
Tacitly, yes, because the kind of natural resources that are there, the illegal mining is rampant. And there are those warlords are there, they're doing the illegal mining. Incidentally, diamond mine, they have got the gem grade material, that diamonds are there, they're being extracted out. Cassiterite mines, I have personally seen them, the way they are, you can't do anything about it. But cassiterite, cobalt, all these tin, every place, all these mining activities, there is no taxation that is imposed because the national government doesn't even know what is being mined and how it is being moved out of the country. So that is the reason there is no tax that is coming. There is no income to the country despite the fact that exploitation of these resources is taking place. As far as the neighboring countries are concerned, because of the ethnicities which are there, so there is movement is very easy. The eastern borders of the nation with 3 of the countries, starting from Uganda, then Rwanda, then Burundi, then in the north is the South Sudan, yet another troubled country, Further down south is
Kenya.
Tanzania. These all countries, there is a totally open, porous border. So movement to and fro is very, very easy. And there are a large number of lakes. Again, these lakes movement is not feasible. So whatever the corridors are there, the movement that is taking place, there is no way we can stop the movement. And most of these armed groups, there used to be one group called CNDP, then these days there is M23. There are some of them are all being supported either tacitly by UPDF, that is the Ugandan People's Democratic Forces. Some have a support of the Rwandans, and some also may not be having the support of Burundi. But as far as we are concerned, of course, it cannot be validated whether they have support or not. But definitely there seems to be some kind of a tacit understanding. May not be at the government level, but at the armed group level, definitely there is a nexus between all these people. And post the genocide in 1994, there are a large number of the migrants who came and settled down. They were started being called as FDLRs. This FDLR was carrying out a lot of attacks. The FARDC was involved in carrying out the counterattacks on them, trying to control these. Other than this, those other local minority groups that are there, they created their own organization which are called the My groups. My groups are only providing protection for the unarmed population. But gradually what has happened, all these groups themselves have started exploiting their own population. So this is the kind of complexities of the situation that is there. Further to the north of the central sector where the Indian Brigade is deployed, there is a group which is called the ADF, like I mentioned. They have already been designated as a foreign terrorist organization. Sanctions have been put by the US.
Right.
So, and they have been linked to the ISIS. So that is the way these people are operating. And in the recent past, there have been large number of violent attacks by the ADF on the UN troops also, as well as the FARDC also. Now, this is the kind of dynamics that exists.
So complicated.
It's quite complicated. And the groups, they keep on coming back with different names.
The M23 is also revived after being...
That's right. In fact, M23 came up after I completed my tenure there. So this was a later development. And M23 has emerged to be the strongest group right now. They are the ones who are responsible for all these recent attacks on the FARDC. And that's the reason for the counterattacks and all. The MONUSCO is helping them out. There has been an induction of something called as a Force Intervention Brigade, FIB. Now this is the brigade which has been concentrated just north of the central sector. This has got essentially the contingent from African states. They're carrying out these offensive operations in consultation, in concert with the FARDC, providing them with the fire support, providing them with the logistics support, as also the medical evacuations.
Again, larger picture, General, India being involved in a faraway land, I mean, when you look at figures, I think 177 lives we've lost of our boys, not in their motherland. What does the larger policy picture give us in terms of dividend, apart from trying to stabilize different countries?
You see, as far as India is concerned, we've been in this as a major troop contributing country since 1948, 1950 to be precise, but that is the time we got involved in Korea. That is the first time we sent our contingent, that time under General Thorat and also General Timaya. Thereafter, in Monuk, then Onuk, we had the first contingent. We've had a Paramveer Chakra there also. We've had GS Salaria who got the Paramveer Chakra. And subsequently, this area, not only this, there are many other countries where we've suffered casualties. But then you come to think of it, we one of the most seasoned, battle-hardened armies. And we are carrying out a noble operation, the peacekeeping operation or the peace enforcing operations. Our troops are gaining tremendous amount of experience there. Yes, it has been definitely at a cost. But there have been many instances, we are looking at a large time period. As far as cost is concerned, yes, definitely there has been a cost. But at the same time, we've also gained experience. And as a nation, there is a respect for the Indian contingent. Internationally, Indian contingents have been the most sought after, being battle hardened, and because of their proactive behavior. When it comes to population protection, they go out of their way. Some of the times, on their own, they have done beyond their mandate, because mandate states something, and that is the place where Indian contingents have gone out of the way, and that is primarily to save the people, and it goes with our own national ethos of helping those in distress. So I am proud of our troops, the manner in which they carry out these operations. When I was the brigade commander, I had troops from many countries. When many of the contingent would state that it is not within the mandate, I could just simply bank on the Indian troops to go and stabilize a particular situation. That is the time I have not heard no from anyone, or that this is not covered by the mandate. So that's the reason I think we've got the best officers, best men who are deployed. And you would know our selection system of sending troops is that we send our best troops and the best officers, best battalions, and they're all battle hardened ones. So towards that end, I think this is the positive thing. I would go a step further to say that we should continue not only to provide troops as a troop contributing contingent, we also should go little way beyond that to do something in sync with our Make in India, with our technological advancement that is taking place. So that's what we need to do further.
You mentioned that earlier also, General. If you want to elaborate, because if I'm not mistaken, I think in Abyei, which is Sudan and South Sudan, the disputed area, again resource rich, but no peace or stability there for years. I think we have taken some of our indigenously made equipment. What kind of message does that give to other contingents and other militaries?
In UN, it's a multinational organization, and when you want to really project your equipment, this is the best place, because no other country other than our own neighbors know what is the capability of our own equipment. Now here, in various UN missions, we have countries from South Asia, we have countries from Middle East, that is West Asia, we have countries from American continent, and there are also MILOPs from various countries, the military observers. They see our equipment. Today, the Make in India has come of age. Our equipment, we've just carried out a large number of upgradation of our equipment. Those were the days I used to keep flagging the issues that we had those BMPs, which are the Russian make. Of course, now they're being made in India. But in addition to that, there were far too much of equipment which are of foreign origin. Now, not only that, the equipment, when I talk about the weapons and equipment, we've got the communication equipment, we've got the UAVs, all these things are now being made in India. So this is the best place to showcase the capability of our equipment. And it is being seen by a large number of nations. This is kind of a demonstration in actual operations. So when the word spreads that Indians are using their own equipment, we will become one of the only contingents which will be using their own country produced equipment, unlike many other contingents where they are using only the imported equipment. So that is going to be a big showcase for our equipment, what is being produced in India.
So in terms of regional powers now, and you talked about different armed groups and the complexities, since there has been an attempt of the East African nations to also have some kind of a military presence, whether it's an agreement only with the government, how does that sit with the UN mandate? Can they work together, or could there be inconsistencies there?
It's a rather complex situation there. When I was exiting somewhere around 2011, that is the time they were talking about an intervention brigade which was to be inducted. And then the issue was that since they have got a mandate to conduct offensive operations, whether they should wear the blue berets or not. Because in case we are not conducting offensive operations, all the the counter-attack should be coming onto the blue berets themselves. So how do we handle this? Either they wear a different type of dress code itself they should have, or we should have the permission to carry out similar kind of operation. So that debate was going on, and right now what the UN has is something called as a force intervention brigade. They do not physically deploy on the ground. They are concentrated at one place. Wherever there is a requirement of conduct of offensive operations in consultation or conjunction with the FARDC, they carry that out. They have heavy caliber weapons. They have all the assets that are required for carrying out the air operations, give out the logistic support, medical support, and all sorts of things to support the operations of FARDC. Now, when we are looking at the East African the troops that are going to be deployed as per the decision taken in the month of April under the leadership of Kenya. Now, when this brigade gets deployed, they have not yet got deployed. I am given to understand only 2 battalions have got deployed. They are planning to deploy a total of 9 battalions. So, of course, there are 2-3 things that are going to come about, that they are genuinely interested in the bringing back peace to the region. But how are they going to go about it? How are you going to differentiate them from the UN troops? That is going to be another challenge. They are going to be carrying out essentially target-based operations against M23 as also ADF. These are the main 2 groups against whom they are going to carry out the operations. So there will be a requirement of having completely delineated areas of operations so that there is no confusion in identification friend or foe. That is, IFF should not be a problem. And while doing so, while they are carrying out the operations also, these operations will have to be with the FARDC, and during this period, we, that is the MONUSCO, will have to hold ground, because whenever there is an attack, there is a counter-attack somewhere else. Now, the mandate of UN missions, that is the MONUSCO, becomes to protect those population centers and protect their own positions, so as to counter any attack that is coming onto us. So these are the policies that have got to be initiated. And other important thing is the exact mandate what is going to be given to each of them, and thirdly, the command and control aspects. And fourthly, most important thing is that yet to finalize, as per my information goes, as to the funding mechanism. So far, Kenya has not been able to give their troops. I am told the UPDF is already given 2 battalions. Now, how are they going to operate? So, and which are the locations they are going to base themselves in? So, these are the things that they will have to clearly define and separate out these operations from the UN, because UN is not supposed to carry out offensive operation because it is beyond our mandate.
Talking about the UN General again now, we should take geopolitics into consideration and what happens in the UN Security Council, especially what's happening with the US and China. How does all of that sit with peacekeeping operations and UN, the policy that is set from New York?
As far as these peacekeeping operations are concerned, most of the troops that are coming are from those countries which are not directly involved in any kind of a conflict. If I just tell you, other than Pakistan and India, the other 2 major troop contributing countries are Bangladesh and Nepal. And there are other South American countries that are there, some African nations are there. So they are able to make these troops available for the UN missions. So to my mind, if there is a conflict situation that is there within the other troop contributing countries, let's talk about India or China or Pakistan, we would be able to pull out after the void has been filled up by some of the other nations. Of course, it does take a lot of time in training the troops, deploying them, providing them with the kind of logistics and the other support system that will be required. So it will take about 6 months to 1 year, but that time is adequate for our troops to be pulled back. So it is not going to create any operational void with the parent nations as such.
So in sum up, General, I mean, what does India gain by contributing for so long, so many troops, losing lives in UN peacekeeping operations across the globe?
India is a big power, as you know, and it is, as a policy, we've been doing it now. It's been almost 60 years. 60 is the time that we've been deploying our troops. This is one of the major potent tool that we've got in our hand when it comes to the projection of our military diplomacy. We are able to interact with a large number of nations. This becomes a fighting arm to showcase our capabilities. When it comes to future, now right now, like I said, most of the troop contributing countries are from South Asia. We are also normal plain troop contributing countries. I think we need to go a little beyond. Our technology, our enhanced capabilities is something that we need to demonstrate. We can be a troop contributing country, but we need to do so by using technically more proficient troops. We are doing it in the field of medical. Our level 3 hospitals, the Indian doctors are very popular in all these countries. But we need to deploy our engineers, we need to deploy even naval resources. It's been done in the past. Some air resources, we had air resources in Congo, many other nations. But right now we've got no air resources deployed in any of our missions. But we need to do that, so that instead of going in terms of numbers and in terms of quantity, we need to go in quality. Today we are a regional power and we are looking at becoming a global power in times to come. If that be so, merely having numbers is not going to suffice. We need to have technical and technologically superior contingents which will be able to do way beyond just merely fighting normal infantry based operations.
You were talking about Air Ops General. To end, could you take us through memory lane, some of the most memorable operations that you conducted, say, in the DRC?
Yeah, that was it's a nice question that you asked me. Thank you. There was one operation that had happened during my command. There are these My groups I mentioned, that they carry out this population, the human rights violations and all. Just before I had come in, there was a person called My Cheka. This was a group led by self-styled General Cheka. He had in a village, it's the village called Luvungi. That is the place he had carried out mass rape of 300 women. The moment I reached there, we carried out ground-based operation, which was called the shop window operations, wherein we had almost put in about 3,000 odd troops, but we could capture none. As we, after about 3 months or so, we got to know from our sources that his second in command, who was also the chief of staff, was a person called Lieutenant Colonel Maele. He had to be taken out from the armed group areas. That is where we had carried out full-fledged, a classic heliborne operations. Now, heliborne operations, we have air assets from all contingents. And when you have to go to an armed group stronghold, there are about 300 to 400 people you will find at any place. And UN troops, if you have to land there, you do not have that kind of troops. So this was one classical operation wherein I, as the commander, I had led this operation based on my airborne command post, and the ground forces were led by my second in command, who was Colonel Sanjay Singh, who is currently a Major General. So he had gone in for multiple number of helicopter-borne operations. I was continuously maintaining a hovering aerial platform. They were landing, and the entire operation was being covered by attack helicopters, again from the Indian Air Force contingent. Air elements, we had the air contingent from Indian Air Force again, and also the Oryxes were there from the South Africa. So they were doing multiple landings. They had to secure the area, land there, and surround the entire place and pick up this Colonel Maele without creating any kind of a collateral damage to the local population. We managed to pick him up, got it back, and this became a harbinger for further operations. Total, I think we carried out about 12 operations in the entire 1 year tenure. We found this was a very potent way of conducting operations, and particularly one of the most important force multiplier were our own attack helicopters from Indian contingent. So that was a phenomenal operation that we had done, and for which we received a lot of accolades from the UN headquarters and from the Secretary General UN himself.
Thanks for sharing your experiences, General Mohanty.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure being on board with you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, sir.
Pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And to our viewers, do send in your feedback about this interview, any other topics or countries or issues that you would like to be discussed, or even if you have suggestions for the guests or experts. You do know how you can support us. There's a descriptor in the YouTube descriptor, in fact, that will help you support us financially. You can follow us on our social media handles as well. This is StratNews Global. I'm Amitabh.